Welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné, and here are the top stories from across the continent. In Uganda, preliminary results are beginning to emerge, indicating that President Museveni holds a substantial lead in the presidential election. Meanwhile, opposition leader Bobi Wine has reportedly been forcibly taken from his residence and transported to an undisclosed location via an army helicopter. Warships in Cape Town and a show of force at sea. BRICS Plus nations conclude the Will for Peace naval drills as China steps up its military footprint alongside key partners in South Africa. And after weeks of shocks, stars and high drama, the Africa Cup of Nations is down to its final showdown. So what have we learned from the tournament, and what can we expect when the trophy is on the line? Our guest will share her insights. In Uganda, early results from the presidential election show President Yoweri Museveni on course to extend his 4-decade grip on power, as the opposition alleges deadly violence, repression, and vote rigging during a ballot held under an internet blackout. According to opposition's party, Bobi Wine has been forcibly removed from his house and taken to an unknown location in an army helicopter. As of Friday evening, the count showed Museveni leading with around 75% of the vote so far.
Kyagulanyi Sentam Robert, 1,709,474, representing 21.33% of valid votes cast. Yoweri Tuhaburwa Kaguta Museveni, 6,003,657, representing 74.92% valid votes cast.
Now, it's been over a month since M23 rebels in eastern Congo launched a major offensive capturing the city of Uvira and nearly undermining peace negotiations. The rebels promised to withdraw after diplomatic backlash, but despite appearances, they remain in firm control. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
On the streets of Uvira, you won't see patrols of M23 rebels, but the group still effectively controls the city, according to sources on the ground, as well as security officials. The M23 captured Uvira in mid-December in an event which caused international outcry, only days before the Congolese and Rwandan presidents signed a peace deal in Washington, which was meant to mark the end of the conflict. After heavy criticism, the M23 promised to withdraw from Uvira and then claimed to have done so a few days later. This claim is something of a fiction, according to several sources, who say there is still a light rebel presence inside the city, although the rebels are wearing plain clothes. What is certain is that the M23 controls all the approaches to Uvira, giving the group effective military control. This month, ongoing fighting with Congolese forces has been taking place south of the city, and diplomatic negotiations are at a standstill. And over 30 days since the rebel offensive, little international pressure has been exerted on either the M23 or its backer, Rwanda. The sanctions Congo's government are hoping for have yet to materialize.
In South Africa, a major multinational naval exercise has wrapped up in Cape Town, known as Will for Peace. The drills were held under the BRICS Plus framework, with China leading the initiative alongside partner nations. The exercise comes as the bloc deepens military and strategic cooperation. Eunice Masson reports.
After a week of naval drills, the Will for Peace maritime exercise between nations like South Africa, Russia, China and Iran has concluded. Countries like Ethiopia and Egypt took on an observing role this time. The maritime exercises did not take place without any controversy as it was underway. Deadly protests raged on in Iran, and following diplomatic discussions, Iran did decide decide to withdraw its participation within the exercise. It can also be asked that why it's called the BRICS Plus exercise, as two key nations, Brazil and India, are not participating. South Africa might even benefit from having operations with countries bordering its own maritime boundaries. And to explain this, defence analyst Dean Wingren talks to us.
There's exercise Ipsamar, which is South Atlantic and India. There's exercise Good Hope, which is exercise with Germany. And there's also been some with the US, but these exercises have tailored off recently in the last couple of years. So now we've got this exercise between the BRICS nations. This exercise is a little bit eye-raising because BRICS is economic. It's definitely not a military, definitely not a political grouping, and most certainly not a military alliance. And so we've seen this sort of kind of morphing of BRICS into something more than what some of the original founders, I think, intended.
The next maritime exercise is expected to take place in 2028, and it's unclear which countries will participate.
Now, time for sports. The Africa Cup of Nations is heading into its final act after weeks of drama, surprises, and standout performances. To take stock of the tournament so far and look ahead to what promises to be a gripping final, I'm joined now by sport journalist Thendo Sibia. Welcome. So you've been covering this tournament. I know you've been with our colleagues from France 24. So how would you sum up the competition, this edition of AFCON?
I think in terms of the on-the-pitch entertainment, a little bit more predictable than perhaps last year. We saw Ivory Coast really making an incredible story as hosts, going from almost being knocked out of the tournament to then eventually winning, bringing back Sebastian Haller, coming back from cancer and chemotherapy to come and win the final with his home nation. And this time around, it's more of the nations that we've been familiar with victory and being strong on the continent. I mean, you look at the top four. You have Egypt and Nigeria. Nigeria were in the final last year. And then you have Morocco and Senegal. Those are two leading football nations right now in the tournament. And so that's what I mean when I speak of predictability. A lot of culture, a lot of synergy, harmony. I think that's been beautiful to see culturally what's been happening. Everyone's akin to the famous Patrice Lumumba in the stands, and just following him and his story and how he denied or refused to stay in the country and left because he was offered like almost 2,000 euros to stay per match or per day. And then you just see like national pride in a sportsman-like way, which has also been very incredible. Also, it's the AFCON. I don't know if we all saw the game that was happening on our screens between Morocco and Nigeria, but off the pitch, you had Stanley Nwalbali who got his towel taken away. And so these are the things that you'll never see really in the UEFA Euros or anything like that, and you'll see it only in the AFCON and African football, where it could be marabout or voodoo or just clear tactics where a goalkeeper would like to know which side he should be leaning to, especially when he's taking a penalty shootout. So I think it's been very entertaining. It's been very fun to watch. We're also seeing the emergence of young players. And so you're seeing the early stages of what could be the start of a continuity plan for a new era of football, of a certain style of football, some new players to look out for. And I think it's also paving the way for more opportunities when these players go back to their respective sides. So it's a lot of exciting.
So have there been any major surprises or upsets? I'm talking obviously besides South Africa, losing. So that's one of the upsets. But any major surprises?
You actually got into my head with that one because I was going to say, okay, there wasn't like a major upset in terms of scoreline. But what made me very upset was South Africa getting eliminated, because I really thought this would also be a beautiful story and something unfolding that would be lovely. But unfortunately, in that game, they just played against an opponent who knew how to work in use their mistakes against them. Because if you look at the Cameroonian side, on paper, they weren't even that strong. If you look at possession, shots on target, and then you get South Africa that gets knocked out, and they had just changed also their formation and their starting lineup. So sometimes you'll see that some changes don't need to be made, and this is knockout football. So that's also been something that was very exciting to watch. I think also Nigeria, Algeria, that upset was beautiful football. I think going into that encounter, everyone wanted to see Algeria perform against a much more difficult, for lack of a better word, opponent. And then they got that in Nigeria. I think that really exposed what is required in this African Cup of Nations, where it's the highest level of African football. It needs big match temperament, composure, discipline, organization, staying in the game, game management. And I think that was one of the bigger upsets we've seen in the tournament. And I think also Nigeria and Morocco. That was beautiful because it was 50-50 throughout the game. And we also thought that for some people, you can say it was a boring one. It wasn't packed with goal action and everything, but it was good football against good football. And so they neutralized each other out. And then it gets to penalty shootouts. And it was exciting because it was really unfortunate for Nigeria, which won't be going to the World Cup later on this year in the United States, Mexico, and Canada, but also just a great display of football. I think outside of championship, it's very nice to see how well these countries can perform. And so seeing the Nigerian side and their performance this time, I think it makes one of the greatest stories of the tournament.
Yes, and Moroccan and Senegalese fans are gearing up for the AFCON final with great enthusiasm as yours. For the first time in 50 years, the Atlas Lions have a chance to win maybe their first Africa Cup of Nations title while hosting the tournament. And for Senegal, the upcoming final will be their third one in 4 successive AFCONs. Meanwhile, in Rabat, the streets are bubbling with excitement for the final match. Clémence Valère takes a look.
Be they in Dakar or Rabat, Senegalese and Moroccan fans celebrate as their teams secured their places in the AFCON final. With less than 48 hours to go until match day, fans of either teams cannot wait, all hoping their players will be the ones to lift the trophy.
We're going to play and we're going to celebrate. It's one big party. We say to the Senegalese, you're welcome, but we're going to devour you.
I think with the way Senegal plays, it will be tough for Morocco. I don't know if they're ready for that, but I think it will be tough for Morocco. I hope Senegal wins.
The pressure is on for both teams. For the Atlas Lions, who are playing at home, Sunday's final will mark their first shot at the AFCON title in 50 years. They are hoping the backing from their fervent supporters will help them overcome Sadio Mané's Senegal. Meanwhile, the Teranga Lions also have a lot riding on Sunday's match. AFCON champions of 2021, the upcoming game will mark the third time the country makes it to an AFCON final in the last 4 competitions.
The stadium, the fans, the passion they've shown their teams. It's been a really great experience. We're really looking forward to Sunday's match, and once again, may the best team win.
The Battle of the Lions will take place on Sunday evening at the Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium in Rabat.
Teams being devoured, so
Hey!
so what else should we be expecting this weekend?
Honestly, I think very exciting football. Very fast-paced, I think. But also you can get a Moroccan side that could park the bus like they did in the World Cup, especially when you have forwards that just charge at you like Sadio Mane, if they field a midfielder like Lamine Camara. You also have a right back or just a defender like Diouf. That also makes it difficult for maybe a Hakimi to be overlapping and then taking the chances from the wings. So it's just interesting to see how it's going to be, but I think it's going to be some nice football to watch. Yeah.
Something to look forward to this weekend. I know you'll be back tomorrow in this studio. Well, thank you very much. And this concludes today's edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for joining us and keep on watching France 24.